What's up, Jones Bones? It is your girl, Unitedly Random, and we are back for another episode of Trauma Timeline. Today is Mommy Dearest², in which I will be talking about my birth mom and my adoptive mom, and just kind of a current event that happened with my adoptive mom, okay? So if you guys are interested in, diving into that with me, stick around and we will be getting into that right after me, like going ahead and letting you know that when we talk about Trauma Timeline, we talk about trauma. And we're trying to put it down in some sort of timeline that makes sense. Because of that and the nature of this, some of the things that I say might trigger you. So I suggest you get a cup of tea, or you have someone, a stable person in your life, because these might bring up things from your childhood. And I don't want to, give you my story and then it makes you feel bad or makes you start thinking about your childhood. If anything, if it starts a conversation, good. But if it starts a conversation where you start to kind of beat yourself up, go ahead, make sure you pause and you separate yourself from this story, because my story will always be here, but mental health comes first. So I'm going to be drinking Yogi Sweet Tangerine Positive Energy tea right here. I don't know if y'all can see that. I'm going to be drinking this throughout and I'm going to make sure that I take little tea breaks. I have my composition notebook in which I was writing about what I wanted to say in there. And we're going to go ahead and get into it. Now, this is, again, episode 2. So if you haven't already seen episode 1, in which I explain why am I doing this and give a little smidge bit of the story, episode 1 will be linked right over there ahead. But let's go ahead and get into the intro.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
And we are back. Episode 1 left a lot more questions for me. Not necessarily anyone who responded underneath the video, but it left a lot more questions for me because I walked away feeling like I didn't necessarily touch on the things that I wanted to touch on. And I guess because I just wanted to dip my toe in and walk away. But it made me want to go back and like revisit it a little bit, give a little bit more details. And the conversation kind of rattled around in my head, which caused me to pretty much explode on my mom. So I sent her some text messages that weren't so nice after that post. But we're gonna go ahead and start with the beginning, the origin story, if you will. And if you see me look down, it's because I'm trying to make sure we keep this kind of linear, or we kind of keep it in the way that I had it planned. And the first things first, okay, I don't want to knock over my tea. The first things first is we're going to be talking about my background story, the background story of me, my mom, and my birth mom, okay? So, if you guys haven't known, I am adopted, and I was actually adopted when I was, I think, about 4 or 5. This is what my mom has told me, and she's given me a little bit of information about my birth mom. But in actuality, I don't have a lot of memories, but I have teeny tiny memories of when I was that young. And funny enough, I don't know why it's never really placed in my head. I was kind of raised without knowing that I was adopted. So it was kind of like, I don't know why this didn't, place red flags in my head. I think, if you really don't want to see something, you try your might to not see it. But I remember actually choosing my new last name, okay? It's a sweet story for me because it reminds me of the little bit of agency that I had at one point. I don't know where it went. I don't know how the tides changed, but I remember this agency. And I remember going with my mom out. I think she actually was the one that pierced my ears. And I think it was one of those days where, you know, she took me to go get pictures taken in a little red dress, and she made it like a little event, you know, to go get pictures taken, got my ears pierced. And I remember her asking me, do you want to change your name? And it seems silly. But I remember her like, do you want to change your name? And I'm just like, what? And she's like, yeah, do you want to be a cloud like me? And in my little head, this is something that I truly remember. In my little head, I thought to myself, cloud? Wow, I get to be a cloud? Because my last name was originally Hill. I remember that. I remember writing it on my papers and everything. My last name was originally Hill. And when my mom asked me, did I want to be a cloud? My immediate thought process was, clouds are high in the sky, so they're over hills. And so therefore, I remember my reasoning and everything of wanting to be a cloud, because, you know, clouds were higher than hills, you know, and I thought that was pretty dang cool. So that is, you know, the origin story of cloud. But that's not the only younger memories that I have. I don't have a lot. You know how they say trauma, which is kind of funny, because when I explained to my mom at one point that I didn't have a lot of memories of my childhood, she would tell me, you need to stop saying that, because people are going to think that you had a traumatic childhood. That's only for people who had traumatic childhoods. And slick, I mean, ma'am, I was taken from my birth mom. I think that's pretty traumatic, and God knows what I saw before I was taken away from my birth mom, you know, so it wouldn't make sense if I didn't have my memories. But my mom was so offended by the thought of people, like, thinking that there was something wrong with me. So, go figure. But yeah, that was a cute little story, the cloud story. Other memories that I have when I was that young were pretty much of my brother pretty much teaching me the ropes, and me being in the children's hospital, waking up on a hospital bed and asking for my sister. Growing up, I did not know anything of my story, and we also didn't necessarily have fathers. Like, we knew the people in our lives weren't necessarily our fathers, but we didn't have a storyline with how we got here. You know, it just was never talked about. So there were questions, but there were never answers. I'm getting all over the place. I am going all over the place, and I do not like it, so I'm going to take a sip of my tea. My birth mom was someone that was introduced as my auntie. She was the type of auntie that would just pop up in my life and then pop away, and I never really knew much about her, but I knew that my mom did not like her at all. That was the one thing that I knew. Like, my mom was the type of parent that, like, people would come over to visit her, and she would send us to the door to be like, she's not here. But when specifically my birth mom came to visit us, she'd be like, don't let them know I'm here, and da-da-da-da. And she'd be really irritated, on guard whenever she came to visit. Which my mom never really thought to, like, sit me down and really have this conversation with me that I was adopted. More so, my adoptive mom told me when I was 18. And by then, there was already a lot of questions. My brother used to bully me about being adopted when I was younger, and my mom would be like, he doesn't know what he's talking about and stuff like that. But it was a childhood of my mom pretty much gaslighting me, if I could say so myself. For example, when I got in high school, we found out that I was O positive and my mom is O negative. And I don't know about you guys, but to my understanding, it is impossible for an O positive to have an O negative, okay? Or O negative to have an O positive. Either way, it's pretty dang impossible, right? But even then, my mom continued to lie. Like, it wasn't, oh yeah, I'm trying to protect you. It was even when scientific facts were telling you in your face that you were wrong, you were saying that the scientific facts were, not true, and just in general, gaslighting. I was always the lighter kid growing up, so like I was different, I've always been different, and so my mom would tell us, because everybody would be like, oh, Alia's so light. My mom would say, well, black comes in different colors, so it doesn't matter if she's this color, because I got family that's that color too. She would continue to try to hold on to her lie, because at the end of the day, my mom never wanted me to know. In her head, it was because she was protecting me, but I think in my head, it was because she was claiming ownership of me in that way. Later on, I've had a conversation with my mom about it, and her reasoning is, while on paper it sounds nice, she'll let it slip every once in a while that I was a replacement for a child that she didn't get to take to full term. She's let it slip before on multiple occasions, and she's also, while trying to argue that I'm a blessing for her, and while trying to argue that she never wanted me to feel different, she's on multiple occasions brought up the topic of sending me away, putting me up for adoption. She's brought up the topic of me being just like my mother, even though at that time we didn't have the conversation that I was truly adopted. She's treated me differently, and as I got older, it was something that I started to notice more and more as I got older. She would watch Lifetime movies with me, and it would always be about a girl who found out she was adopted and runs away from home, and she would look at me, and it's not me being paranoid, you guys. She would look at me and she'd kind of be like, well, I don't know why she would run away from home. That person took care of them, clothed and fed them, and this and this and that. And at first, I wouldn't necessarily argue for it. I play devil's advocate a lot. So I'd be like, well, I think it comes down to that person lying to them, but that would really trigger my mom. So I learned to just be like, oh, well, I wouldn't be that person. I don't understand why they would do that, just to kind of please my mom, because even though it wasn't talked about, I knew there was some iffy things kind of going on, but also I just didn't want her to feel like I was going to leave because I found out I was adopted. But as I got older, it was like my mom started to push me away more and more. For example, when I was about 15 or so, my birth mom came back into my life. She came back into my life around like my birthday or so, and she was like, oh yeah, you're 18 now, which no, it's not 18. I had a couple more years before I was 18, but she popped back into my life, gave me like $500, a box full of gifts and whatnot. Typically buying my love. And she just popped back in. And like I said, I grew up kind of understanding this person to be my auntie. And also I grew up understanding my birth sister to actually being my like cousin, because she was like, that's your auntie's daughter, right? And we weren't strangers to my mom being a foster parent, you know what I'm saying? She had kids going in and out of the house. Like, I think that's hot tea. I think at one point she's had like 100 kids going in and out of her house. But it was just weird circumstances, right? And like I said, she would let it drop out later that she felt like I was specifically a replacement for a child, which sucks because I wasn't necessarily an easy child. You know, being diagnosed with ADHD at a late time in my life, and then also being adopted at such a late time, I don't think my mom expected for me to come with the problems that I came with. I think that she's used to working with babies, and I was the only not baby that she was working with. You feel me? And I think that that also hindered her ability to connect with me. I was always seen as an outsider. Even as a kid, my mom would laugh about how I didn't necessarily click in with the other kids. I think that even in her grand scope of trying to make sure that we never felt different, she made sure that I always felt different. Me, I'm the type of person that really values realness. I really value honesty because we grew up with someone in the household that wasn't quite honest. That is a conversation for the next video. But I really valued honesty, and I really valued having a voice, and my mom valued secrets more than anything. So growing up, once I got to the age that I found out that I was adopted, which is very interesting, my birth mom came down to see me. When I finally turned 18, she came down to see me, and the day that I turned 18, she took me up to McDonald's. And she was like, "I'm your mama." And I was just like, well, makes sense. You know, I told her, I said, well, that makes sense, but you're going to be an aunt from me. Like, you don't just pop up and you're going to become my mother. And it's kind of interesting that only in her death and like in clarification of our relations to each other do I really call her my mom. She was sick. Her kidneys were failing. And around this time, she started to ask me, oh yeah, you know, she started to hint around me giving her a kidney, which was uncomfortable. I was trying to go to South Korea, and I was like, yeah, I think I kind of need my kidney. And I'm not really the healthiest person to just be giving my kidney away. Kept bringing the conversation up until I finally told her a couple years later that no, you're not getting my kidney. And that's something that really sticks in my head because I asked myself, how long does your kidney start to fail before you definitely need a new kidney? How long has your kidney started to fail before you need to get pretty much dialysis every 2 days? I'm doing the math by myself, and I'm trying to understand the timeline by myself, but part of me believes that when she popped back into my life when I was about 16, her kidneys had started to fail then. And she popped back into my life and gave me a bunch of money and gave me a bunch of gifts to prepare to ask me for my kidney. She popped into my life thinking I was already 18 when I was 16. So it's already giving that she didn't really keep up with the years that she gave birth to a child. And I know, like, from my adoptive mom that my birth mom was doing the drugs, okay? I know that my birth mom was, you know, selling it on the streets. I know a lot of things about my birth mom, but what really sucks is I didn't get to get that information about my birth mom from my birth mom. I know she had diseases because even before I knew she was my mom, my adoptive mom told me, don't let her kiss you. Don't let her kiss on you. Why? Because my adoptive mom held the stereotype that if someone with AIDS or HIV kisses you, you get the AIDS and HIV. And I never held any of these things against my birth mom. You know, like, people have hard times. You know, people struggle. It's just, I wish I could actually know her struggle. I wish I could actually understand what was happening, because, like, I think it's a very valid desire to want to know, why did my birth mom kind of lose her shit? Like, you know, because now I am an adult and I kind of lost my shit a couple times, and I'm trying to know if it's hereditary, okay? You know, these are important informations to know that I will never know, because my birth mom is now dead. She died when I was in South Korea, and this is bringing us a little bit back to date with the why I moved out of my mom's house. And I thought to myself that this wasn't going to be a long video, but baby, look where we are. I moved out of my mom's house because there was a very deep secret. Now, your girl don't like to hold secrets, but there was a very deep secret that my mom became privy of. And once she became privy of it, I thought things would change. And things did change, but things changed in a way where she just slowly pushed me out. I was the problem after she found out about that secret. And it was really interesting because I felt like, even though my mom and I didn't necessarily get along, I didn't think it was going to end up the way it ended up. Like, at the end of the day, the one who got hurt was the one that was pushed away, while the one who hurt that person gets welcomed. And, you know, this timeline that I try to do, this timeline shit is not shit, okay? I thought I was gonna be able to talk and this and this and that, but, like, Spirit said talk from your chest. What had happened was, when I was in Korea, I got attacked, and I touched on that, and I keep saying it's a story for another day. This is a story for another day. But when I was in Korea, I got attacked, and I came home. My birth mom had died, and that side, her friends and her family wanted me to come down and pretty much pay for a funeral for my birth mom, because, you know, she died and stuff like that. They had a lot of responsibilities that they wanted to put on me, but legally I had absolutely none of that responsibility. You know what I'm saying? Once I got adopted, I didn't have any rights over any of her bank accounts or anything to do a funeral for her. And actually, I found out that my birth mom had some insurance out on herself, which I knew about, and she gave me the policy number and everything. But after I told her that I wasn't going to give her a kidney, she let that policy go. So when she died, there was absolutely no money to be trying to put her in the ground. She remained up there until they had to go ahead and cremate her and just, you know, bury, like, you know how they do with unclaimed bodies. She ended up an unclaimed body. It's sad. That's really sad. When I think about it, I'm just like, you know, but there was nothing that I could do legally. Everything was so crazy, but I came home because of that, trying to figure out what I can do, and just, it was after the attack, and I just was drained, and I came home for comfort, and I was sitting with my mom, and she was talking about my brother. And, you know, I'm coming home for comfort, and you're talking about my brother right now. And I was just like, hey, I don't want to talk about him. Why do we always have to talk about him? Because my mom was the type to vent to her kids. Her kids were her therapist. Let's get it straight. But, and also her kids could never really come to her to vent about anything. Because, you know, you are the therapist. I'm not the therapist for you. Okay? Weird dynamics there. But I was like, I don't want to hear about this boy anymore. My brother had a long rap sheet of not doing right by the family, okay? Like, I mean, he in a way was the rotten apple of the family, if I could say. And like, it's kind of funny because I'm the one that ended up getting kicked out of the family. I'm the one that ended up being the outsider of the family. But he was legitimately the rotten apple, if I could put it any other way. Like, I've never seen anyone that bad, you know? And I don't know if it's because of, like, I remember the things that he used to do to me as a child. Like, he used to bully me. Like, he would egg me while I was in the shower and all that stuff. But I'm talking, like, stealing from the household, like, taking out TVs and whatnot. So, and I also mean, he stole her wedding ring and pawned it. But, you know, like, I mean, he had a rap sheet, and she was talking about him like, oh, I don't know what to do and how to help him and stuff like that, you know. And I was just like, why you always gotta talk to him about him to me? Like, I'm tired of having this conversation with you. Like, find someone else to talk about this with. And I'm stressed out. Birth mom died, and I got attacked in Korea, and like, I had PTSD is what they said in Korea. I'm just stressed. And my mom's like, why don't you like him? Like, why you got a problem with him? And I'm just in my head like, bitch, have you been here? Like, have you not been here this entire time? Like, girl, I've been here this entire time. I've seen every single thing that this boy has done to you. You know, the thieving, the da. Bitch, he took your wedding ring and pawned it. You know what I mean? But she was like, no, there's something about the way, there's something in your eye that shows me it's something else. Like, what, you know, I know what that look is. Did he ever touch you? Did he ever touch you? And she's yelling at me, and she's like, I know. And the thing is, generally, there's no secrets but unanswered questions for me. I don't like to lie. I'm not finna lie on the spot. That makes me so uncomfortable. If I make a joke and I bend reality for a little bit with my joke, you know I'm gonna have to come back and be like, nah, that was just a joke. Like, I'm gonna have to come back and explain to you, nah, I was just playing. It gives me so much anxiety. And when asked on the spot, I remember not being able to say anything because I was shocked. Because I'm like, how did she get that from me just not even wanting to have the conversation about this man anymore? And like, if we're being real, I think she's always known. So I was just like, you know, when in Lifetime movies, when someone finds out something they're not supposed to know and some shit like that, you weren't supposed to find out this way. Like, this was something I was going to take to my grave with my family. They were never going to know. It wasn't a ticking time bomb in my life. I was going to grow up. When my mom one day died, the only person I was going to keep by my side was my little sister. And I was going to keep on pushing because I felt, in general, not a lot of ties to the family. And I don't think it's a mixture between, well, I think it's a mixture between them not necessarily conversating with us, like they just were like, oh, that's a kid, and kept it pushing. It's a mixture between that, and then also my mom always telling me that the family didn't care about me, the family didn't want me. If she were to die, I would go to a home because nobody in the family wanted me. It was a mixture of that, and so I didn't have any close ties with those people in my heart because my mom told me what it was, you know? So I was gonna be like deuces and like just disappear. But yeah, she asked me, and ma'am, you weren't supposed to find out this way. And she's livid. Like, she's yelling at me, like, how could this happen? And this and this and that. And she's yelling at me, and I'm just like, you weren't supposed to find out. Like this is like, you're not supposed to know this. It's weird because I know I wrote about it in a diary that she found at one point. She's found my diary in which I wrote about it because I wanted someone to know. But back when I was in middle school, I wanted someone to know because it was choking me every single day of my life. It choked me, and I felt like I was suffocating my entire life because of it. But I never told anyone because back in middle school, my brother was the teacher at the school, and people would make up rumors about me just because. So I couldn't tell the truth. You know what I mean? Because if it got back to him, I was afraid. Because he showed me through one of his actions, one of the conversations that I had with him, that it's the victim's fault. And that stuck with me. And I didn't say anything in high school because in high school, I knew that my brother had connections to people in my high school because he went to the same high school at one point. And I was afraid of me opening up about it and then it getting back to him, because when I was younger, he would tell me that if I said anything, it was off with my head. And I was afraid of him, to be real. I was really afraid. So this turned out to be a lot heavier than I thought it was going to be. We're gonna have to do a Mommy Dearest part 2, Mommy Dearest² part 2, because my camera is dying. But much love and positive vibes, and I hope to see you guys again next time. Like, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know any questions that you want to know down below so that I can clarify them in the next video.